Hello and welcome to this session. I'm Christian from Vision 6D and I'm going to introduce you to baselining a project with msproject. You see, I have behind me a project. This project is part of what I'm using for teaching. I teach this in the context of the implementation of a CRM project, a CRM software within a company. A CRM software is a customer relation management system. It means that it is a software used by marketing, by sales, by support. From the moment they do marketing campaigns, there are customer inquiries, and then there are sales, and then of course there are things that go to support. So we are now into this project at the time where the software was implemented into the company, and we have to train the people. The training will be the training of about 50 people that come from 3 different locations. Those locations, they are Lille, Marseille, and Lyon in France. And they all gather to one place to get a training. So our project is and was to schedule the training from the definition till it takes place, and there is a follow-up on sites for each of the location. We will have consultants, the same consultants that gave the training, that will go to each location to help the people there when there are the issues, when we really start to work live with the software. So this is a series on this part or this project on which I have already done different modules. We have a first module where you can see how we do the schedule. There is a second module where you can see where we assign and define resources. And it's really interesting because we use all the kinds of resources that msproject provides, meaning the human resources, material resources, and cost resources. So this is really interesting. The third module, of course, something that is really important there, it's to know how much it's going to cost this project. So you see the project behind me, and now we are in the situation where we are ready with the project. So what we want to do is to do a baseline. A baseline is a reference. It's like taking a picture of the project as I thought it would happen. When I'm saying I'm saying the project manager and the team. And of course, while the project is evolving, there might be things that happen not so much as we planned them. So from time to time, we want to be able to compare how it's evolving to the baseline. Like that, we'll be able to say something is happening we didn't plan, or it's more costly than we expected, or it's taking more time. We are maybe out of our tracks. So this is the use of the baseline. Baselining a software, a project with msproject is really something easy. You don't have to do much with it. You simply have to come into your project, and here I'm going to look at the project. And here I went over the project part. I just need to have a bit of feedback of what you see and what I see. And what I'm going to do is, if I want now a project to do the baseline, you will see with msproject it's really simple. Behind me here on top there is a button called Set Baseline. I click simply on that button. I do a set baseline here. Behind my back has opened a window. For that you can see it, I'm going to change and disappear for a second but I'm still with you. You see, we can set the baseline and we just have to say, okay. And this is it. Nothing changed in MS Project, as you can see. That's the reason why I can come back. And that's it. I could say here the module is ended. You know how to do a baseline in MS Project. But of course, it's simple to do, but we have to understand what it means, what really happened inside of MS Project, and is it wise to do it at that moment? What should I check before to do the baseline? And it's this that I'm going now to look with you. So first of all, let me switch to a smaller image of myself. Like that you can have an idea of the project. And in this project you see that we have defined different tasks. We have defined duration. This was done in the first module. Then we have here assigned resources and established relation. Resources were done in the second module. So if you want to know the details, feel free to go to those different modules. They are all available for free online. And one important point is that you can also download this file to do the exercise, to try to change certain things, to adapt. And it's through practicing that you will learn and improve what you do. So this file is available on our website, vision6d.com, in the download part. So you simply go on the site, on the download part, you identify yourself, and you can download this file. So the third module, which is already online, is the module in which we did the cost estimation of all this project. So to present you the project in a different way, I'm going to take here a report from the dashboard. The one I want to have a look with you is here the cost overview of the project. And what I want to have you pay attention to is that the project costs 131,000 euros, and here down we have a table in which you see the different stages of the project. We have defined initiation, planning, execution, closing. So you see in the middle here, we have a column that is interesting. It's the baseline. Since I baselined this project, I have already information here coming into the baseline. We are really at the stage where this project didn't start. We have the estimation, 0% was completed, and we just created the baseline. So the values you see in the cost baseline, they are exactly the same as the costs. And you see that we don't have any changes, we don't have any variance. So this means that in our project, we already baselined it. So of course, I want to show you all what we can do with the baseline, and I'm going first to remove the baseline that we just did into this project. So I'm just going back. I'm going to reopen the file that we can start as we said. So I'm going to open this file here. And we are here at the beginning of the project. So I'm going to go to project, and you see that we can now take the set baseline. So I'm going to have a look at it just to see that there is already in there a baseline. You see, it's the baseline we did today. What I'm going to do now, it's that I'm going again on the same part here up. I'm keeping the ribbon, it's easier for me. And here you see below, I can clear the baseline. So what is interesting to understand is that you can set the baseline, you can remove it. Of course, if there are changes in between, it's not really something to do. But in our case, we haven't done anything here inside. So I'm going to clear the baseline. And msproject is asking me whether I really want to clear the last baseline that I did, which I'm saying, okay, of course. So now we are going back to the report that we had just before. And if I go down, but I'm standing at the wrong place, so I'm going to change this again at the wrong place. So allow me to move myself like that. I'm not disturbing your view. So we see here now that the baseline cost in the middle has disappeared. Like that, we see for sure that this project wasn't baselined. So this is one important way to give a look at the project. Another way that you can look, again, into project, you can go into project information. So I'm going into project information, and below you can see statistics. So you click onto statistics, which open here, and you see that you have the start date and finish date, which are the current value, and below there is a baseline line. And you will see that it's NA not applicable. It means that for the moment we haven't baselined that project. So once again, here below, you see for duration, there aren't any value for the baseline, as well as the total number of hours worked in the baseline is set to 0. So these are also indicators whether or not you have baselined your project. So I'm going to close this here, and I'm going back to the Gantt chart. So one important point when we are baselining things, it's to be really sure of what we are presenting. You are at the situation now where you are the project manager. And with this project, with the defined costs or budget, with the resources you will have, with the schedule you planned, you are sure 95% that this project is going to move that way. So now you are going to engage yourselves to the steering committee or maybe to the board of your company that you are going to lead that project and that it's going to be a success. So if at this point you feel uncomfortable because you know that maybe something might happen, and if this happens, then maybe the cost will increase, maybe it will be over budget, and you won't have a successful project. Or maybe you will have on certain tasks a delay, and for this you won't be able to perform as you expected. So for this, you need to make sure that you have all what you need into this project. And for this, you are going to look at the critical path of your project. So for that, I'm going first here up to remove the timeline that we can have a better view of our project. I was looking for the button for the timeline, and I'm going to say that I want to see the entire project. So I'm going again to shift myself a bit, like that you can see more the chart part. And here inside I'm coming and I'm asking to show the critical tasks. And you see that we have some critical tasks which are down in the right corner here down, and some in the middle. The one in the middle that is just above my arrow is the training week. But you see that all other tasks, they are in blue, which means they aren't on the critical path. So you might be expecting that you have a lot of tasks in red when you're asking the critical paths. But let's just remember the meaning of the critical path. The critical path is that any task that is on that path, if there is a delay, the delay cannot be absorbed by the project. We have to postpone the last delivery date of the project. So if you are in the situation where we are standing, actually, we want to baseline the project, we didn't start, we want to have the board agree with this way to proceed with the project, to give me resources, to give me money for it. This can only be done if I'm really sure of the proceeding into this project. If I have many tasks in red which are on the critical path, it means that this project has become really sensitive, and any change in any of the tasks might bring a delay to the project. So if I'm here with a project that has more tasks in blue than in red, it sounds that it's better. I'm ready to go and propose this project with such a planning and such a cost estimation. So how do I explain that I have so many tasks in blue? The explanation is quite simple. To have your tasks in blue, and once again, it's what you should have when you are doing the baseline of a project. It means that we have integrated margins in our project. In our schedule, there are margins in terms of delay, and there are margins in terms of costs. The margins in terms of costs that I have, it's in the beginning of the project. I have here tasks that I know won't last so long, won't cost that much, but I brought it a bit up because I know that maybe later on, maybe the consultants, they will have to stay a bit longer at some of the locations. So I prepared some cost or savings of money aside, or reserves, better said, yes, I should say reserves that are hidden in the costs that I have here in the beginning. When you are looking at the critical path, msproject is not so much looking at the costs, it's looking at delays. So you see, for example, here in the middle, I have a free space. That free space is a margin. Here up, you see, there is also a white space, but there is a relation in between. So this is not a margin. So the margin I have here, it means that all those tasks here before, they could be delayed before to enter into consideration as being on the critical path. So once again, what is important is the margin I have inserted here. With this margin, I know that schedule-wise, I have margins into my project. If we look at the part which is below, here down, we see that also the interventions of the consultant, we distributed them over several months, and we know that in between there is space for a margin. So with that, we have a project where we have also margins in terms of schedule. With that, we are able to absorb some of the delays that could happen. So with that, we are now in a situation where I'm going to say that we are ready to baseline this project. Before to do that, I want you to be able to have a look at other kinds of table we have in msproject. Usually, when you key in values for a project by default, you are into the entry table. I'm now going down into the schedule table. And you will see that here we have information about start, finish, as we had in the other one, but we have late start and late finish. And we have also information in those columns which are the slack. What is a slack? Is in the end a task you have to perform, and then there is a margin before that this task is going to be on the critical path. Here you see that if I'm taking, for example, I'm going to take here financial resources here. You see that the slack of this task is 93 days. It means that the financial resources, we could define them or plan them in this project with a delay of 93 days. So is this correct? It's a question. Is this correct? My answer is no. Because imagine that you would just define what you need in cost, money term at the end of the project. You would never be able to pay all what you have to pay during the project. So although the schedule is correct, here there is something that is not really correct. And why is that not so correct? Because you see that this task doesn't have a link going to another task after that. No other task in the project has a dependency on this task. So since we don't have that dependency, msproject is simply thinking that all that space that you see that I'm showing with the arrow is a slack. We could have that task that starts at the point where I'm showing my arrow. So this is not correct, but I'm not going to change this. I'm going to leave it as such, but I want you to be aware that although the planning seems to be right, there is into the planning here something that is wrong, and that should be changed. But since it's a short lesson, I'm not going to do that. So with this, you have an understanding of this table that is here that is different, and that is interesting because it shows you where you have free slacks. So I encourage you to go and choose that table when you are ready to baseline a project. And once again, this table is the schedule table. We can also give a look at the cost table. You see, the cost table is interesting at that stage because that table defines the total cost for the project, but also for all the different tasks, and then it comes with variances, which, it comes with the baseline cost. Actually, we haven't baselined the project, so there isn't anything. The variance is the difference between the total cost and the baseline, and for the moment, since we haven't started, it's the same value as the total cost. On another point, you see here the actual costs, what we've already spent. Since we haven't started the project, we haven't spent anything. So remaining is again the total. So with that, you've seen now another kind of table that brings you interesting cost information. I'm going now to go down to another table also. It's the work table, and you see the constitution is work, then the baseline, then the variance, then the actual. It's similar to the cost, but about the work. So I'm going now to the tracking table here, or maybe I'm choosing the summary table, where you see duration, start and finish date, percent complete, cost, and total work. So this is also an interesting table to work with, but that table is not telling us whether we've baseline or not, and it doesn't compare anything to the baseline. It just says, did we accomplish something in the project? So now there was a last table I wanted to show. It's the tracking one, actual start, actual finish, percent complete, and other different columns which are here that you can interpret. And I'm going to give a look at the variance table because it's the most interesting in the end. The variance table, you see it gives us start and finish date, and we have start variance and finish variance. And you see in between we have baseline start and baseline finish. So this is really an interesting table, and I'm going to stay on this table while I'm going now into the project and to do the baseline. So I want now to set the baseline. So I'm coming into project, set baseline, and you see that we can set the baseline, and we can set the baseline for an entire project. It's what I'm going to use, but we could also select certain tasks on which we do the baseline. We could, in this project, for example, say we are not so much interested in baselining the beginning of the project when we do the definition of the project, but it's from the moment we start the preparation of the training up to the moment the consultants have finished their interventions on site. So we could do it, but I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to set the baseline on the entire project. For this, I need to come up here. Here you see that we have the possibility, or msproject stores up to 10 different baselines. So what's the use to do that? Often you have a project that moves ahead with a certain baseline. You thought things will happen like that. And at a certain point you have discussions with the customers or with the board, and you see that you need to bring into the project important changes. So it doesn't have any more sense to compare the new project with its changes to the older baseline. So for that, you have the possibility to redo a baseline from a certain point in time. The good habit is then to archive the earliest baseline. Like that, whenever you are at one point in time, you can always come and compare to that initial baseline, for example. It could be you have a customer that wants an important change into the project. You all agree, your team thinks it's a really good idea. It will cost more, but the customer agrees on that. So you redo the baselining of the project. Down the road, 6 months later on, you as the project manager, you really remember what was the initial baseline, the baseline 0 if you want. And the customer tells you, oh, no idea what you are talking about. Then it's really convenient to be able to do the comparison or to call back the initial baseline or all the intermediary baseline you created, and to show them to the team, to the board, to the customer, and to yourself. It's important to be able to do those comparisons. So for that, msproject provides you the possibility to have up to 10 different baselines that you are going to store. So with that, I think this was an important point. At that point, I'm simply going now to say, okay, and watch what will happen in this table at the moment when I'm saying, okay, baseline the project. So I baseline the project. I have just to go back and to make sure that I baseline the project. I have the impression that something went wrong. I need to check it. Yes. I've said the entire project, yes, but okay, I'm just going back one step. Yeah, so now it came. Okay, so my demo wasn't so efficient at the first time, but I had just to move my cursor. So you see that all the dates now for the baseline start and baseline finish, they have been copied. So it means that when we do the baseline, msproject is really saving all the data that it has somewhere in a file, and it stores this under the baseline number 1. So now that I've done this, I have my baseline here inside. So of course that I can go and check some of the other tables I had. I will come here, for example, and I will look at the cost table, which was the first one we had, and we see that we found back what we had in the beginning. The baseline column is now filled with data. If I choose another one, I will take, for example, the work one. We see that we have baseline column for work, which is now also defined. So with that, we have the different elements that show us that we really have now a baseline that is into the system. So what I'm now going to do is to go back maybe to the entry as you know it. And you see that if you stay with the table entry and the Gantt chart as we have it, you don't see anything about the baseline. So it's really good to learn to be able to change those tables. So I'm going now to go again to, let's say, the schedule one. Or let's take the tracking one. So the tracking one, you see that we don't have any information about the baseline as well. Now what I'm going to do is to come here into the diagram, and here I can choose to have some information also on the diagram. I'm going down here, and you see that I can select now a baseline. When I'm selecting a baseline, you see that the diagram has changed. I have now added gray lines. Those gray lines, they are the ones from the baseline. and the blue ones, they are the ones from the actual planning, the actual schedule. And you see that already graphically you can compare them, since you see that the gray line, they absolutely fit our project that was defined with the blue and red tasks or lines. So with that, you see now that we are taking here a tracking view of our diagram. I'm now going into the task usage here. No, I wanted to go to the Gantt chart, and I'm going to take the table you are used the most often to work with, the entry. And now we are going to start to do a certain follow-up on this project. And in order to do that, I need now, because I want to test my baselining. So the first thing that I'm going to do, you see that the project is started by the end of February. I'm going to say that I want to check what happens into the project by the end of March. So for that, I'm changing the status date and I'm setting it to the 30th of March. Okay, so at that point, nothing has changed into the project. By then, I'm saying that yes, we've defined the project, so this task is now done. So I go back into tasks and I'm saying, okay, I've done this task, it's done, and I'm going to zoom into the Gantt chart that you can see what happened. You see that now we have 3 bars. We have the clear blue, which is how the project duration is scheduled. The gray one is how it was baselined, and there is a darker blue in between. I'm just checking that you can see it, and that darker blue is telling you how we are moving into this project. So at this point, we moved perfectly well. Now, below there is another task, which is write the charter. And here we said we are going to do this for 2 days. But when we really worked at the project, we noticed that it was important to spend more time doing this. So I'm going to change this to 5 days. So I'm changing now the duration. And you see now that the task has been prolonged by 3 days. And we can really do the comparison here with the baseline. So we already see that something happened here. And if now I'm slowly coming back and zooming out, we see that all the tasks were moved by a certain number of days. Since all those tasks are chained, of course that by moving one task by 2 days, it has a repercussion on the other ones. So this is what we are seeing here. With that, we see that it is really clear now in this diagram that we can see, comparing to the baseline, that something is changing in the project. So if now I go to some of the tables and I'm going to pick the tracking one here, we see that write the charter here, actually we see that we have 5 days in the remaining duration. So I'm going to do one thing about that task. Let's say that we managed to do what we had to do during that task. For that, I'm going here, and I'm going to select another table. I'm going to select the entry table. I'm selecting the right charter task, and I'm going to say that it was performed 100%. And now I'm going back to the table here, for example, variance. And we see that for this specific chart, this specific task, we have here the diagram, but we have here a finished variance that is delayed by 3 days. So this is to illustrate the principle, once we've baselined, that we can now compare and start to analyze and follow up what's happening into the project. With that, you've seen now the base of what we can do when we are baselining a project. For me, it's a pleasure to be able to exchange with you those information. Like that, you have now knowledges that you can practice. And once again, this file is available on our site, vision6d.com. And if you wish, you can also take direct trainings with me. You can, of course, contact me, or you can ask questions online. All those files and videos, they are available for free. So don't hesitate, drop into this subject, jump into this subject, I want to say. And I wish you a great, great time. And I'm saying hi to the people that followed. Have a great day. Bye-bye.